Welcome back. So now we're on your phone.
Yes.
We're going all over the case. Careful, I get seasick easy these days. Um, so we had about I don't know, a minute or so of me saying, "Oh, Jenifer froze up." So you're in the middle of something. You were talking about something. 10 minutes ago when we froze up, and you just froze. And you're in the middle of a sentence. I think we're talking about my books, and so that froze up. So what'll happen is this: since this is a video call, I use Anchor, which goes to Spotify for podcasts. Then we can load these onto YouTube as well because they're video. So what I usually do when something like that happens is, let me check something here. Yeah, it'll be like part one and part two. There'll be technically separate podcasts, but they'll just be one right after the other. So
you can cut, right? You can cut and clip out the.
Maybe, I don't know. Everybody will just figure out they lost her. Let me just go to part two, and we'll just put it in the show notes. And the idea is there are certainly ways to do that stuff. I don't know how to do it on a Zoom call. If I had other expensive software where I was recording this, then yeah, no problem. I might be able to load it into CapCut, and then cut it there and splice the two together, but I don't know. So I'm just giving you the heads up. It might just be technically two separate shows because they'll post separately, but they'll post back to back and they'll be available back to back and all that. So sorry about that. That's my little technological glitch.
We were talking about the fact that you have 2 books up on pre-order that come out in December, and you haven't started writing them yet, and you're confident that you will complete 2 books. And I just put a book up for pre-order that comes out in April, and I'm finished with it.
That's what I was going to ask you. That's the Atonement Murders?
Yeah, it's book 7 in my Agent Victoria mystery thriller series. And I'm finished with that book. I still need to polish it up a lot. I'll rewrite it. I'll do all my steps. I'll get betas and all that. But I was nervous to put a finished, not ready for public consumption, but I've written the story. And I was nervous to put that up for an April date. I think that's
9 months? No, 8 months. Oh, now we lost your hearing, or are you back?
I'm here.
Okay, yeah, sorry. Oh, getting a little nervous there. No, I was actually teasing a little bit. When I say I haven't written a word, I've got basic outlines for both stories and a lot of different scenes written. And I'll tell you, here's been my problem. I'm gonna make a big excuse for myself why I haven't worked more on these books. My goal was, as soon as I finished the prior book, the one I put out in April or whatever this year, I have young authors clubs. So that's me, for the audience, that's me working with a bunch of little school kids, 3rd graders, 4th graders, and they write their own book. And then I publish them all, okay? Which is a great way to get kids into writing and reading. It's just a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. But I do it at several schools. And in order for them to have their book before the last day of school so they can show it off to their friends and everything, means all those books have to get written, and they write a little at a time over the school year, but they all have to get published by me like a month before the end of the school year, which is like May. So April is when I'm crazy busy publishing. One year it was 80 books, okay? So that's editing, formatting, publishing, artwork, most of which is done ahead of time, but still the pressure of putting out 80 books in a week, it's just a lot. And the reason why the pressure is there is because if you ever saw the face of a kid who everybody else in the club got their book and their name is wrong or their picture's wrong or anything's wrong with their book, they're just so hard. A 3rd grader, 8-year-old kid, they're just so heartbroken. I put so much pressure on me to get them all right, and I don't get them all right, but I got to make as few mistakes as possible. So April is like a big stress ball for me, and that was when the prior book came out. So my goal was get the author club books done because I was on top of it, cranking them out. Really, it's stressful, but it's pressure, but it's like I was on top of it. And then I was probably going to take a week off, and you're never really off. You're always thinking about your next story and making notes and stuff. And so I was putting together, this scene, and I want this kind of a plot, and what's the twist going to be? And we went to the beach, and I got sick with this virus thing that knocked out the hearing in my left ear.
Yeah,
And
I saw
then
talk
that,
about that.
that, so having an inner ear problem, the inflammation killed like the hearing ability, but it also had made me super motion sick. If I shook my head back and forth like that, I would feel
Oh,
like I needed to throw up. Okay. And that was like a week of that. Popping Dramamines. And Dramamine is I find out after the fact, it's like a central nervous system depressant. So you don't feel like doing anything. So no
mhm.
kidding. I didn't feel like writing anything. So I took a week off. Then I didn't feel like writing anything for a week. And it was longer than that because I was on the Dramamines for a while. All of which is just an excuse as to why I didn't. I got a broken chair here. It's like my wife and daughter bought it for me. I need a new chair, but the hydraulic lift thing, it's broken, so it kind of shrinks down a little bit. So next thing you know, I'm way down here. So about every 10 minutes, or I have to sit up and raise it up. So anyhow, just a conflux of things. So I get hearing aids and stuff. And they're really cool. I like them a lot. But if your inner ear is making you, I mean, if standing up off the couch makes you motion sick, then you're not exercising, you're not doing a lot of things you want to do. And when I type, I look up and down at the screen a lot, right? I read what I'm writing, so your eyes are going back and forth, not your head maybe, but your eyes, which is the same thing to your inner ear. It's disorienting. So everything made me want to throw up, everything for weeks. Again, this is all an excuse. This is not why the books aren't written, because that was a long time ago. This is September now. But I kind of just got knocked off my game, and I thought, all right, I launched into marketing again, which I usually do when summer gets here. And marketing is so freaking depressing for me that I'm spending so much time marketing and staring at my numbers and wondering what's going wrong and depressing
What do you
myself.
mean?
Like,
Why is it depressing?
why is marketing depressing?
Yeah. And what
Because
kind
I'm impatient.
are you talking about? Like paid ads? Is that what you're talking about?
Facebook marketing, regular basic stuff.
And it's depressing because it's hard to come up with the ads, or because that they don't always convert? What do you mean?
Because the ads don't convert. So you spend a lot of time making ads or multiple versions of an ad, and then you roll it out there for not a lot of money, $5 a day, but it's going to be 150 bucks. And then it's costing you 25 cents per click, and it's getting 2% people to go through to the website to buy it. Like, what the heck? This same ad 6 months ago worked fine, but I redid the version and now it's not working at all.
Do
And
you
so
still have your affiliate links?
sometimes yes, sometimes no. I mean, if I never know what's gumming up the works. Like I said, marketing is just, it hamstrings me 8 ways from Sunday. So anyway,
Okay.
so I got a bunch of different books I can market. So I'm all fired up. I'm gonna launch into this, and I'm spending thousands of dollars. And if I'm lucky, I break even, right? This would be like May, which is not, you don't want to spend a bunch of hours doing stuff and have it break even, or maybe throw back, $100 at you or something. It's just not good. It's not bad because the books are getting noticed, but that's why I said I think I'm just impatient. I do all the work, and then things seem to be okay. It's getting better and better, and then all of it's not converting very well, and then I get nervous and I pull the plug and I create a new ad or whatever. But anyhow, so I'm monkeying around probably 2 months of just. Here's why it depresses me, because depressed, in quotes, because you do all that work for books that people like, they get good reviews, they sell well, but for whatever reason, these ads aren't doing it, and you're spending all this money and just making the money back, and it's like, that's not a good business plan. And it's so spending all that time getting frustrated then makes me, I don't want to do any marketing, and don't have any faith in the books because my marketing isn't working. So it just kind of, you know what I'm saying? It's kind of like a train wreck of just a bunch of things happening all at once. Kind of knocks me off my game. But it
Well, you're
is,
still writing, you're still producing pretty regularly, I'd say, for sure.
I
How
would
many?
say this, I haven't written anything in earnest since that last book. I mean, it's one thing to write a
That
scene
was
and jot down
Dark Hour.
ideas.
Your last book, The Dark Hour?
Last one I think was Killer in the Dark. So that was like April of this year.
Still in the Dark, in the Jet Thacker series. Is that your favorite series now?
It is and it's not. My favorite series is Double Blind because it sells the best. but I thought I would have more freedom with Jet Factor because since she's not a cop, she doesn't have to know the police rules and
Right, right.
like to know Miranda rights and stuff. I thought she's
Yeah,
an investigative journalist, so I thought she can
got
break
that
rules
wrong.
and not worry about it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But it's not as popular because it could be simply because I listed it as a psychological thriller, and I probably I should just rename them as straight up murder mysteries, and they'd probably do better because they have murders in them, so it's not like they're not a murder mystery
Or they just haven't had their time yet. You just
or that.
One of our friends who has had tremendous success in the last 2 years is Audrey Cole. She is
Yeah,
just Now she is spending a lot of money, but her books are selling. So
yeah.
you can spend that money
Well, she
and it
was always
works.
doing well. She always did well. Her books were always well ranked. Yours are always well ranked. I was looking at
She-
what's
She's
her latest
really
one? Is
doing
it a medical thriller?
what?
What's her latest one? Is it a medical thriller?
No, it's her latest book is historical fiction. And before that, she had two mystery thrillers.
What are the Crescent
Mystery
City ones?
But what's fascinating is when one of her books just really took off and it really gave all of her backlist. Like she had a book, she's always been smart with marketing, but she had a book that she had free for so long to try and get more reviews. And then I saw that, and it was written years ago. And now that book is like, selling really
Yeah,
well.
not free. I
So
saw that.
so it's just fascinating that a book that you can be giving away for free for months to get more reviews, and then later it's making you a lot of money. So you just never know, like, just because something isn't doing great right now doesn't mean that 3 years from now that's not going to be you know flying off the shelves. You just don't
Well,
know.
I went into what was I looking at? I was probably looking at medical thrillers, and I was going through the ranks, and one of hers, I thought it was a medical thriller. One of hers was way up there, and one of yours was right neck and neck with hers. That particular day that I happened to be looking, it was probably when she sent out probably on one of her newsletters, and I was like, let's see how this other book of hers is doing, and it was doing great,
Mhm.
and it had a bunch more reviews than the last time I had checked it, which may have been 3 or 4 months, but it was hundreds of more reviews. So I'm like, wow, something's happening here. And I just wrote her a little note like, hey, your books are kicking butt. Keep up the good work. The covers look great. The Amazon description for the new one looked really good. And I was like, you're rocking it. And she was like, oh, thanks, blah, 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 like she is. But you're right. Yeah. Her game went to a new level with something in the last, what would you say, 12 months?
2 years. 2 years. It's been 2 years when The Pilot's Daughter came out. That book changed everything for her.
Yeah. I read that one too. It was a good book.
Yeah.
What would you
Yeah.
say what was a book of yours that seemed to change the platform to take you from maybe the minor leagues
Oh,
or
that's
amateurs consideration to the minor
that.
leagues?
So it was not my, wait, just let me do a little count here on my fingers. It was probably like my seventh or eighth book. And it was the third book in the Victoria series, When They Find Us. And you read that. You were my critique partner for that.
Yeah.
And that book changed everything. And so I was doing all the stuff that we're supposed to do. I was doing Facebook ads, and I was doing all sorts of things, but I think Amazon, for whatever reason, helped me with that book. And so that book was in like the top 1,000 in Amazon for many, many weeks. And it had a bestseller in like several categories for like a year. And I really thought like I made it. Like that book changed me to a 6-figure author. I just thought I made it. It's so great. And now that's still my top selling book. I still advertise it heavily because I know that my ads for that book work. But what's sad is that I've written like 4 books since then, 3 or 4 multiply, but it didn't. Like that, the height of that book has definitely lessened. And so I'm kind of back at the same place. I've got to publish 2 books a year to kind of like maintain, and I've got to advertise them all. So you just never know when. Like I know that Amazon gave me a break on that one. There's no doubt about it.
Funny how that works, isn't it?
I've never done a BookBub deal. Somehow they were helping me like they were helping me. I think sometimes the Amazon gods just say like, let's help with this one. So you just never know. And I
Well,
haven't had
you hear that
that.
story a lot from authors, don't you? I was talking to a lady what's Amazon's publishing arm thing called?
um, Thomas and Mercer, or
Right.
Mercer and
So somebody I met on TikTok, and I was like, hey, your books are doing really good. And we followed each other. So we were talking for a little bit. And I said, what, like asked you, what book really took off for you that changed the game a little? And she wrote, well, I did this one, and then it got picked up by Thomas and Mercer. And then after that, and somebody else said the same thing, somebody that we were in a marketing thing with, I forget who. Same deal with that one, with that author. And I was just like, well, Thomas and Mercer's kind of a different thing. And once Amazon picks you up, they're not gonna not promote their books, right?
yeah,
But
I'd like to pick me up.
yeah,
They can
exactly.
pick me anytime.
I heard somebody on a TV show was saying, like James Garner or something. He did, Rockford Files. He was an old guy when he said this. He was looking back on his career. TVs, he did a couple TV shows, Maverick TV show, did a bunch of movies with Doris Day back in the 60s or whatever. And he said, if you're doing 1 out of 3 that does well, like is in the mainstream or catches on with viewers or whatever, that's pretty good. 1 out of 3 is really good, a really good average. And that's true of baseball players. Like a baseball player who hits 300 gets a hit 1 out of 3 times at bat. A hit means getting onto base, right? Which means 2/3 of the time, somebody who's doing well in baseball, 2/3 of the time they're failing. Somebody who's doing good in TV and movies, 2/3 of the time they're failing. But we expect home runs every book, right? And we certainly write like the book should be a home run. We put the same amount of effort, if not more, into each book, but it's a little fickle of how it actually pans out in real life.
I know. So what's your best-selling book right now? What one is kind of
It's
the
between
double-blind series, you said? Is there one in particular in that series?
Primary Target, but it's going to be overtaken.
See, that was the third book, right?
Second one in that series.
Oh, the
And
second one.
Third Degree is the third book in that series.
That's
and
right.
Third Degree is going to overtake Primary Target here in the next 30 days or so. But this is a good point that goes back to what you were saying. I took a year, almost maybe more, a little more than a year, between the first book in that series and the second book, because I wasn't going to write a series. And I wrote some of the Gamma sequence books. And so when Primary Target came out, well, you remember we were talking about that one and how I thought, oh, would be really neat with this ending, this last little, there's a twist, and one more little twist would be really fun. And so I wrote it that way. You and I were on a conversation like this when we were talking about it. I said, I wouldn't have to change very much to make that happen. I like that. I'm going to do that. And so that one became very quickly became my best-selling book, the most popular book, has the most reviews, sells the most, or did until recently, right? Because another book came out in the series. And I was really nervous about putting the cover out because there's like a rifle scope. There's a woman that's sitting on a park bench. It's one of these right here.
Yeah, I love covers. I
But it's
love
got that rifle scope on her. And I had heard you can't put a gun on there, but if it's pointing towards the camera, you can't put a scope on a woman. That was like a big deal. I don't know if you could put one on a guy. And I thought, well, this woman on a park bench, she's facing the other way and there's a scope on her. I'm like, that's not going to get approved, or it's not. If it does get approved, it won't sell well. And it did well. So 2 things on that. Sometimes the rumors aren't true, but the second book, and it was almost a year.
But have you tried to run Amazon ads with that book? That is where I hear the problem is. If you try and run, you cannot run Amazon ads. So Facebook is fine, but if you try and just do any old sponsored product or anything like that and that doesn't seem so much a weapon. So I think it's like, bots that are picking this up, they might not even get that scope.
There was a phase 1 or 2 years ago where having crosshairs was like a really big deal. It was in the media and stuff. And so I just thought, well, if it doesn't work, I'll call the guy and say, hey, we got to take that off, come up with something else. But it seemed to be fine. But you're right, I didn't do Amazon ads with that one, I don't think. So
I think they might give you a hard time, but those covers are beautiful. They're my I just think they're so vibrant and they just really stand out. I love those covers.
You know, a lot of people say they like the colors, and to be honest with you, if I'm being totally candid, I think the book inside is not well represented by those covers. I think it's a much more serious book, and I think the covers make it look more pulp fiction, like a lower grade of fiction. But then you have to just reconcile and say, hey, if it works, it works. You know, don't knock it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, a lot of covers right now, the bestsellers, especially in psychological fiction, there's nothing on the cover.
I
There's
know.
just like some words and maybe like a wisp of, I don't know, a hair, a feather, like on the very edge. It's just a color and some words.
And
So
I like to do that stuff. I'm prone to choose that for a cover, right? But it's like, you know, if you talk to 10 authors, you'll get 10 opinions, but the majority will be try to have some kind of something that pops and something that looks like the genre and that kind of stuff. And I have a terrible eye for that stuff. If I go to my newsletter people and I give them three color covers, one is like, say, one is one you thought of for me, one is one I thought of for that same book, and one is from my cover designer. They never, ever, ever, ever pick the book I like. If I have three from the cover designer and I like one the best, the one I like the best never gets any votes.
well,
That's
then you're smart to use a cover designer and not design your own.
Yeah, exactly.
That's your,
But the worst part of
that's
that
smart.
is he'll always ask me, so what do you want on this? I'm like, the more input I give you, the worse it'll do. So I'm just nothing. You come up, here's three sentences about what the book's about, design me a cover. And he'll say, which do you want, the background of Tampa or just this? I'm like, flip a coin, bro. That if I pick it, it'll be the wrong one.
So you said you're going to a writers conference.
Yeah,
This,
yeah.
what one is?
It's, I don't know if they call it NINC, Ninc. Have you ever heard of that one? I'm sure you have.
No, I don't, but I just don't, I'm not really in the, I don't know any. So,
I didn't know this one. I used to go to the Florida Writers Association conference. I used to do presentations at that. And there was a Tampa Writers Alliance. I did some stuff with them. And then COVID happened and everything kind of stopped. There was this one's hard to say, Necronomicon conference. Okay. So it's mostly horror stories and stuff. And they contacted me through my website and said, hey, we'd love to have you come, would you like to sit in, do a presentation, do a roundtable, something like that? I'm like, sure. It was right here in Tampa. Why not? And then that was the year that COVID stopped all the conferences, right? So we did it like this, like Zoom call kind of thing, virtual conferences. And it wasn't like it wasn't well planned, but there were very few people attended virtually. I think people like to attend in physical proximity of the conference. Like people who attend like to be there, gives them a thing to go do versus being on their computer. So that one didn't do well. So I thought, well, I'll do it again the next year because we should be out of COVID by then, which we were. But it was the tail end of it, which is this time last year. Okay. So I went and it was neat. And they have it at the embassy suites, and there was big presentations of costumes. And these people, a lot of the attendees will dress up in costumes like Star Wars stuff and monster stuff. And it's fun. But it was really more horror themed.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really do that too much anymore. And so I thought, okay, I would certainly do it again. No reason not to, but I didn't think it was very well attended. So I asked participants and attendees and stuff last year, and they go, this is about 1/3 of what it would normally be. So I go, okay, well, this year should be good. Well, so I was talking to Sonia Sargent, who is going to the NINC conference. And she mentioned to me that they go to this one, they get a big benefit out of it, they like it a lot. And there comes a point where if you go to a conference, you can probably learn the same thing online through webinars and free stuff. But there is something fun about being surrounded physically by a bunch of people who are trying to do the same thing as you, right? So I kind of quit doing conferences as an attendee years ago, but as a presenter, I'm like, sure, why not? Get my name out there. And then I kind of scaled back from that again. So when this one rolled around, I thought, well, it's in St. Pete. Okay, it's not that much money. It was $500 for the weekend, so something like that. So I'm going, but they have a criteria. You had to sell, I forget what the dollar amount is. This is probably the wrong dollar amount. you had to sell $10,000 worth of one title of your books within the last 12 calendar months, or within a 12 calendar month period, sometime in the last couple of year or two or something like that.
In order to attend?
Yeah, to be a member, and then you can only go to the conference if you're a member. So yeah, kind of the same thing. So I thought, well, that's a little different from a lot of other conferences. So maybe there's some benefits to be had. Other than that, I don't know that much about it, but I'm not doing any presentations. I'm going and then we'll see what happens. So that starts tomorrow. So I mean, you saw my TikTok because that was where I mentioned it, right?
No, you just told me we couldn't do this Wednesday on.
Right. When we were trying to schedule this, because I was going to be at that conference. Because I did a
Yeah.
TikTok. Got to fix my chair again. See, I was getting short. I was way down here. So I made this TikTok and I said, this is every author when they sign up to go to a conference. It's like 9 months from now, they're like, ooh, conference. And then like the day before their conference, they're like, I don't want to go. You know, that's kind of my deal. So today is that day. I'm like, I don't want to go to this thing. It's 4 days in St. Pete. And it's only an hour from here, but it's a beautiful resort. So it'll be fun for that.
Well, I'm an introvert, as you know, and so the thought of going to a conference, there is nothing about that appeals to me.
I
Nothing.
invited you to the FWA conferences, and I think you would have had a good time. Because first of all,
That's not
our
my idea.
big plan was me and a bunch of friends, we're going to go, we're going to ingratiate ourselves with the staff, and then the next year we'll present and they'll pay for our hotel rooms, which is exactly what happened. So it's been a free trip to Florida for you and your husband and maybe a couple of the kids. It was a decent hotel, not a great hotel. It was in Orlando, but it was only an hour from the beach. And then you could present, and presenting, you like to do presentations, don't you?
I do. I like to do presentations. But when you go to stuff like this as an introvert, even if you're having a good time, it's just exhausting. You know, being with people is exhausting. And then somebody's going to say, oh, we're all going out to eat or we're going for drinks. And then that's like super exhausting. And then you're like, oh God, is that going to happen again tomorrow? Like, I really like these people, so I don't want to be like too weird, but it's just not my thing. But during COVID, I did do several conferences that normally are in-person conferences, and they were online this year. And I'm surprised that, you know, so many writers are introverts. So I'm surprised there aren't way more people like me who are like so excited that they could go to this conference and benefit from all the speakers, but without having to actually leave their house. So that's what I like.
That probably all has to do with marketing. It seems like probably more than 90% of authors are introverts, and they would much rather do a virtual conference. But then it would be, you got to market it to them so they know it's out there, so they would know to attend. But a lot of the FWA stuff, when I gave a presentation, it was probably to 100 people. And when they had their big ballroom events, there was several hundred people. And like, I don't know if it was ever 500 at any one thing, but it might have been. So there's big crowds that would go to those.
Inkers.com conferences. Have you done any of those?
No, and honestly, there are reasons to go to conferences, but my inclination is, if I'm going to learn something, I could learn that stuff faster, shorter, at my own convenience, online somewhere, and probably for free. Some well-known author has talked about this information or put it out there or something, and it's out there. And I would say across the board, that is probably true. Then there's the social aspect that you mentioned about going. There are people like, you know, Kelly Abell. I don't know if it's Abel or Abell, right?
Yeah.
She liked to go to events. So that was her thing. She enjoyed. And there are people who go to the events, like going to the events. But there are a handful of introverts that force themselves to go to the events, say nothing, learn things, and like network with one other person who becomes like their internet best friend when they all return to their neutral home states and stuff. And I get all of it. There's a full spectrum out there. So as much as I'm kind of like, it's really inconvenient. My wife's out of town for the week. I'm going to go for 4 days. My daughter's got to get to softball games and school. But on the other hand, isn't that what life is? You know, it's just not that big of a deal. You figure it out. Grandma comes and picks her up. My daughter's thrilled. She's like, I get 2 days at grandma's house and then 2 days at my best friend's house doing sleepovers for 4 days. She's thrilled. And it's like, honey, who's going to come home and take care of the bunnies? She's like, grandma and me can do it on the way to school, Dad. Not a problem. I was like, she's got it all figured out. She's not worried at all. but it hasn't happened yet either. Tomorrow night, when I'm in St. Pete and can't do anything about it, I'll get a phone call. I can't find my toothbrush. Like, well, use grandma's. It's not a big deal, I guess. Grandma's smart enough to go to Walmart and get you a 99-cent toothbrush for that 2 nights she'll be there.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be fun, and you'll meet some new author friends and learn some stuff and share some stuff. I'm sure it'll be great.
There's great speakers. It's a great hotel. But I'll tell you what I do. I cheat. Like I'll go over there. So I got an authors club tomorrow, right after school. And my plan is to have my suitcase packed so that as soon as the authors club's over, the suitcase will be in my car and I'll just drive to the beach. But when I to the resort, and I'll check and I'll go to my room and I'll probably just kick back. I probably won't attend anything that night because it's like a social cocktail hour, happy hour stuff. I probably won't go to any of that. I'll go to the classes that I'm supposed to go to and I'll meet a handful of people. And then at some point, the second day, I'll loosen up and be social and start carrying on the way I do. And by the time the thing ends, I'll wish it wasn't ending, you know? And Saturday night, I'll be like holding court somewhere. And then Sunday, I'll be like, all right, this is out of my system. I don't ever need to do this again. And, you know, it's like, I don't want to do it. And then when I'm there, I have a great time. And then when it's over, I don't want to do it again. I don't want it to end. And then as soon as it's over, I don't want to do it again, ever.
Got it.
That's just the weird way I am. But so I do know a couple of people who are going, who I know who don't live nearby, right? So it'll be fun to see them. And then you know, yeah, you network a little bit, but so you said so we were talking about the books we have coming out. So you just put one out, did you not? Didn't one drop in the last week?
No, I have one coming October 7th. So it's
Did
been,
you just start the
what?
what? I think that was new. Wait a minute, hold on.
No, it's been on pre-order for
Oh, maybe that's it.
4 months. So that can confuse things because, you know, you get things from Amazon saying Jenifer Ruff has a new book, but no, it comes out October 7th. And I
No,
did
you're
a
right. I
lot
misread it. So
I'm
I thought
excited.
Vanished on Vacation just came out. It's not
No.
out yet. Okay.
Not out yet. And I did, you know, with every launch, I try new things and I get rid of the things that don't work and stick with the things that do. So this one, it's going to be interesting. I did NetGalley for the very first
Oh
time.
yeah, I saw you talked about that.
Yeah, so I'm excited. So, you know, it's really great to have a lot of reviews, good reviews on launch day. And I'd heard that NetGalley reviewers can be very critical. So I was a little nervous, but I have 60 reviews or maybe 70 reviews on NetGalley so far.
That's awesome.
And they're all positive. They're all 4 and 5 stars. They're really good reviews. I feel very happy with it. And I've had over 600 people download the book. So,
Through
you know,
NetGalley.
what does that mean? It could mean, so just keep that in mind. Because
is that 600 pre-orders or is that 600 NetGalley?
No, this is 600 people downloaded it to read on NetGalley. So they have to like ask for the book and say they'll read and review it. So I know, you know, if I just gotten started, I'd be like, I'm going to have 600 reviews plus my ARC team. So I'm trying to keep my expectations so low. But if I had 600 downloads and plus the people who have already reviewed it, their review is just on NetGalley. It's not on Amazon or BookBub or anything like that. So when the book hits, I think NetGalley sends them an email saying this book that you downloaded is now available, put your review on. So I won't be crushed because I'm expecting it. I am expecting that 10% rule that of those like 600 people, 10% will, even though they're supposed to be reviewers, they are literally like reviewers. I will be happy if 10% of them put a review on.
Well, you're pretty much there then, right?
No, because those reviews are not on Amazon, which
But
I
if the
want.
reviews you got on NetGalley, if they all go to Amazon, you're more than 10%, right?
Yeah, but will they? I mean, you know, some of them will be busy that week. Some of them will be like, oh, I got all these others to do. Oh, I'll get to it later. And they forget. And apparently they only get one email because, you know, you can't have, that's how it works.
Yeah.
Get one email. So some of them hopefully will be out there, but it's just going to be interesting, Dan. You know how it works. I mean, you know, 1 out of every 100 people leaves a review. So
Well,
we'll see.
you've done pretty well with those types of things. It's like whatever you have, your advanced review team or whatever you. We've had conversations in the past where I would say if 30 people were ARC readers for my book, I would expect that to turn into between 5 and 10 reviews. And not to put words in your mouth, but your expectations are more like if 30 people took my book and said they were going to review it, 30 people better review that book, kind of thing.
Yeah.
It
But I
wasn't
have
that, but
a relationship with my advanced review copy team. They're all people that I found like through my website, like people who contacted me through my website and said things about my books or found things in my books that they would have changed. So these are people who already had an interest in my books and my writing. So I didn't have them at all for like the first 3-4 books. I didn't have them at all. There are people who kind of streamed in, and they're people who not only take the time to, find something wrong and write it down, but then took the time to contact me through my website. So these are like special people that enjoy doing this. And so I really do count on them. And I don't send them a copy until they say, like I send out an email saying, this book is coming. Here's what it's about. Would you like to read it? If they say yes, then I send them the copy. So it's not like, I'm not just sending it out and hoping that they read it. So it takes a lot of time, and that group is small. Like, I mean, there's maybe only 30 or 40 people, but they kind of already are people I can count on. So
no, I get it. I think that's a smart way to do it. I kind of segregated my newsletter readers the same way. I have my main body of newsletter readers, and then a subset of that is beta readers. A subset is ARC readers. And they all get the same emails, but if somebody's been a beta reader before, they're in a different group. So I can see, are they opening the email? Did they request the book? And a high percentage of the beta readers and ARC readers do. And there's a lower percentage of the main group. But I know it's like we know them. You see the email, the person, this one's a firefighter, that one was in the military, this one's a doctor. You just know them. And what's cool for me is they write to me like, well, we do know each other because we've been writing to each other for years now, really. But it's always cool, I think, you tell me what you think, when some regular reader, right, is unaware that they could go to your website, somebody like you, click the thing, they're getting an email from you when you send it, and they could reply and it goes right to you, and they could be having this whole conversation, and they would never think they could do that. And then all of a sudden when they do it, they're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you wrote me back. It's like, this is what I do.
Oh, I've got several stories like that where I think the person just didn't think it was actually going to get to me. And so I got some emails that were kind of nasty, like, really nasty, like just a tone that was like so not nice, because they didn't think it was really going to reach me. And then when I responded like right away, and I'm like, oh, thank you so much. You made me laugh. That's great. And all of a sudden their tone totally changes. You were a real person, and like they didn't get that. And some of those people that have kind of sent some comments that weren't so nice are now on my team. And that's
No,
the
they
kind of
were
person.
honest,
Yeah. And you want people that are gonna like totally be like super critical, and you want those people to read your book before it comes out.
Oh yeah.
And I have lots of people on my advanced review copy team who have never given me 5 stars, not once. They say they love the books. They're every time I say this new book is coming out, are you interested? Yeah, I'm so excited. Oh, I love your books. And yet they have never once given me 5 stars. So, I can count on them. I know they like my work. They found me, but they're not 5-star.
Don't you find that kind of ironic? I met somebody on TikTok and I sent her a couple of books, and she did little TikTok videos. I love this book, 4 stars. I'm like, 4. And then she read the next book. I think it was in the same series, read the next book in the series. Another great one, 4 stars. I'm like, what the hell does it take to get a 5th star out of you, lady? I'm not sending you any more books.
I've got a lot of people like that. They are so excited to read my books, and I can count on them, but not ever a 5-star. Maybe they don't give anything 5 stars, but that's okay. But if you've got people on your team that are giving you like 3, like that's totally fine for a reader, but you don't want one of your first reviews to be a 3-star. And I feel so sad. I'm like, if you don't this is like my best work and you can't give it more than 3. Why are you asking to read my stuff? But
Well, don't you find though that if somebody, let's say they're in your advanced reader team, they're getting the advanced copy, the finished product, and they read a couple of your books and enjoyed them, they're probably not giving it 3 stars, because if they don't like your style of writing, they've kind of bailed out by then. I don't think I get a 3-star review from any of them in my ARC team. Not very many
no,
4 stars either. But
I get a lot of 4s.
well, I mean, relatively speaking, but not, I don't know what's a lot, but
But if you have a 4-star review and it says, I love this book, highly recommend, that's great,
that's them. See, when I get something like that from somebody, if they really rate, if it's like a regular review, not somebody I had an interaction with, I tend to click through to see what do they give 5 stars to. And it's just something different from what I do. So it's like, okay, they like my stuff, but I'm not their number one type of thing. Like maybe they like a romance or something. That's what they're giving their 5 stars, but they like my stuff and my stuff's 4 stars. Like, okay, that's your taste.
Yeah.
That's your preference.
Yeah.
So the one is coming out in so next month, right? October. You
October
nervous?
7th. So just a few weeks.
You nervous?
No, I mean, what I've been doing lately, there's so much time between when I finish that book and when it launches that, I'm finished another one since then, and
Yeah.
I'm the slow writer. So it feels like I'm not attached to it, like really emotionally anymore. My audiobook narrators, a lot of the holdup is for them,
Yeah.
and they still haven't finished, which makes me nervous. Like
For
they
the
started
October release, the audiobook's not done?
no, and that was like the big holdup is, so it's really important to me that that audiobook comes out with the book. And they're not done. I know it, they'll probably come through at the last minute and I'll be, literally up all night trying to listen, and I, won't want to request any changes. And that keeps happening to me. It's really sad because I've got so much time to get it done. I don't know why it keeps happening. But
Well, it's better to do it that way than what I do, which is like, okay, the ebook's done, the paperbook's done, the hardback's done, launch, and we'll have the audiobook for you eventually. It makes much more sense to have the audiobook there for that launch. You sell a lot more that way. I need to
yeah,
be more disciplined and do that. But I'm in the
yeah,
same boat. It takes me long enough to write the book and then get it set up to release with the cover and everything. But I probably wait 3 months from the time I give, sometimes longer, but 3 months from the time I give the book to the narrator to when they can be done with it, just because they have other authors they're working with, they have other things going on, and it's just a scheduling deal, and then it takes time to do the book.
yeah. But see, I scheduled these like 5 months ago. I scheduled for them to start like mid-August. Mid-August, I gave them my book.
No, it's only mid-September.
Mid-August. So that meant mid-August, I could not make any more changes at all, or things would match. Don't you think that's a lot of time?
uh
Like I booked maybe in April for them to start mid-August, and they've had it since mid-August.
well, you're asking the wrong guy about a lot of time, because I don't think things actually take that much time, right?
Yeah.
I kind of do a lot of my writing is mental. I think about a lot of it before I write it down. And then when I write it down, I don't change it too much. So, and my ARC readers, beta readers, they catch the typos for the most part. But if one of them came to me and said, "Hey, instead of having this happen, you should have that happen," I I probably wouldn't do it. I'd be like, that's a good idea for the next book. I'm not going to change this one. And that
Yeah.
is kind of my attitude, unless it's really, really something that I made a mistake on, which I tend not to do. Because tell me this, you exercise a lot. My thing would be, I'd be on the treadmill, banging out my mile or whatever, and I'm out on the street now, right? Sweating while I do it. So all I'm thinking about now is, am I going to die of heat stroke while I'm out here? So maybe it's counterproductive. But you think a lot about your story during those times, or at least I do. And for whatever reason, I will catch a lot of those mistakes. Like, hey, wait a minute. She had a gun in her pocket in chapter 2. What did we do with that gun? And I'll have my phone right there on the treadmill. I'll literally dictate a note to myself. Hey, you gotta do something with that gun in chapter 2, because she can't have it in chapter 3 or whatever, right? What would be a plot hole or a mistake? I tend to catch those myself when I'm away from the book, and it'll just come to me like out of the blue. It's like, hey, this thing, I thought of one the other day from a book, one of my really early books, and I don't remember what it was. And I thought, hey, there's a little glitch here. Nobody caught it, but it is a glitch. You should think about addressing it, or at least if somebody points it out, have a response. And when I went back to the book to read it to see how big of a glitch it was, and somehow or other later I actually dealt with it, but I had forgotten that I figured out a patch. So I was like, oh my God, there's a plot hole, but I had already put the patch in. Do you do stuff like that? Is that, when you're exercising, or some other time when you're away from your book?
No, when I'm exercising, I'm either doing a class. I do a lot of classes on YouTube, or I'm like on the elliptical or a bike and I'm reading. So
In
I
your
don't,
book, right? Somebody else's work.
and all of my writing comes to me when I'm sitting in front of it. It's like I have to be focused on it, and that's kind of when it happens. And I
Well, it
don't,
doesn't have to be exercise, but if you're driving somewhere, but you're probably using your podcast. If you're driving somewhere, you're probably listening to your audiobook or something, right? An audiobook.
no, but I
No?
don't really go anywhere. If I go somewhere, I'm with my husband and we're talking. So, no, I would think 90% of my writing and ideas come in front of my laptop. Everybody's just so different, but that's when it happens.
There's no doubt about that. There are
I might
different
have a
styles.
TikTok idea. I find myself now having TikTok ideas everywhere and writing
That's
those down.
good.
Like, I can do this, but
Well,
don't
you can
you?
tell when I get a TikTok idea, I usually sit down and just do it.
Just
And
do it.
that's my one start out. You guys probably preferred this when I used to sit in my office with a clean shirt and wasn't all sweaty. But it's like, well,
Yeah.
I got this idea out here. Well, that was another thing too. When I was doing a lot of TikTok content, I was thinking a lot about what is good TikTok content. So mentally, I think that was part of that April time as well. I was trying to do a video, a TikTok a day, and comment on 10 a day. Like you watch however many to find 10 you want to comment on something constructive, positive, you know, value based type of thing. And I would say I don't know, I got carried away with it, or I just probably gave it more time than it needed. And then when I would start to do a TikTok video that was like promoting my book or about a book, I would do a lot more editing of those. So that takes longer. Because like an hour can go by when you're adding a feature or learning the first time to do a
Oh gosh, I
boom, an
have
hour is gone.
that I made about my books where I put in a lot of graphics and a lot of words and captions. And I'm not kidding. Like, they took me 8 hours and I have like 180 views. And fortunately, at the beginning, I was putting those things on Instagram as well, which now I understand you're not supposed to do. Like,
I
people
do it
take off
anyway.
the watermark. And I saw enough things saying don't do that because they each want original content and they'll suppress your views. And that could be BS. But for
No,
a
I think it's
while,
true.
so I have some that, got, barely any views on TikTok, but got a lot on Instagram. So are you sharing them to everything?
So I found out, you probably see this. I do my TikToks on my phone, and it automatically saves a copy to my phone when it's done posting to TikTok, right? And so I thought, well, as long as I have that there, I can upload that to YouTube, Twitter,
But it has the
Instagram.
TikTok watermark on it.
It
So
does. And on some of them, I would load them into CapCut, and I would put a little star that says thriller or mystery or whatever. Because the so like as you're looking at me, I think this is on the left side of your screen, maybe. The watermark starts out here, then it drops down to here, kind of deal. So I was like, no big deal. I'll have a thriller, and then the thriller thing will come down here. And then I did some that way. I did some where it's like if you save it, if you click save before this, it won't have the watermark. I'm like, whatever. And then I did some where I just recorded it in my phone, edited it in CapCut, and loaded it to TikTok. And
is
theoretically,
CapCut a free app, or is that something you have to buy
yeah,
a subscription?
no, it's free. Yeah, you check it out. My daughter showed it to me. Oh my God, you know how these kids are. She's like, Dad, she did something. And I was like, hey, that was really cool. Could we do that with one of your books? And she was like, yeah. Like 2 minutes later, she had recorded it, edited it, and it looked like something that would have taken me a week, And I was like,
Yeah.
I was like, show me how you did that. She's like, oh, you just do this, this, this. I'm like, wait. Where do you edit this stuff? She goes, just go to CapCut. I'm like, back up another step. Got to tell Dad what CapCut is. Then where do I go to do the CapCut? She's like, Dad, it's free. Just download it. Just so it's a little editing, but it's very, very easy to use. And there are lots of little these days. You just go to Google and say, how do I do such and such with CapCut? And there'll be a video of somebody doing it.
Yeah.
So the reason I mentioned CapCut is because you can intersplice, like it'd be a video of me talking and then the book cover and then more me talking, then the book cover or flipping pages, or whatever. It's just more editing features. But there are things you can do to the image. Like you saw one of mine with lightning strike in the book, or it's raining in the background. It's just a book cover, but it's like in the rain kind of thing. CapCut does stuff like that. It adds sound effects, which TikTok does a lot of that stuff too. But here was where I was going with this. So if I made a video in CapCut, now it doesn't have anybody's watermark on it, and I can load it to all those different things. So Facebook's won't have a TikTok on it. But this is that horrible rumor mill thing. Theoretically, I've heard that if you don't make it on their platform, TikTok won't promote it either. They won't push it. They'll not so much suppress it, just won't advance it as much. And I gotta assume,
all
yeah,
their stuff.
they want you to do it on their thing. They want you on their thing. Makes total sense. I'm not sure Facebook cares quite so much because they don't have the editing capabilities and all that. But Instagram and the other stuff, I'm sure they do. But here was my thought on it. I'm like, I can have a presence on all these different social media sites and no content on any of them, or I can have lots of content that was obviously made on TikTok. I'm not trying to make the Instagram gods happy. I'm trying to make somebody happy who happened to find me on Instagram, who will realize very quickly, if I want more of this guy, there's stuff on Instagram, but he does most of it on TikTok because they're all watermarked TikTok. And it's
Yeah,
like,
that's a good conclusion to come to. That certainly makes life easiest. And
it's easy, but like, so my average views on TikTok is 250 maybe. And I probably get 250 views on something within a couple of days of posting it, I think, right? But then every once in a while, one will get like 1,000, or I got a couple that have more than that. A couple, not a lot. No rhyme or reason. They're no better or no worse than the one that came before it or after it, but they clicked for some reason. But if you look at that same thing, it's different ones that were interesting to people on Instagram, although much lower numbers. I don't even have 240 average on Instagram or on my Facebook stuff. Tends to be people who were looking at my ads, who know me anyway, because that's kind of where my demographic is. They're more on Facebook. So those tend to get a lot of views, but they're not worth as much to me because they kind of knew me already. I feel like the TikTok people, those are new people that I'm meeting. And then YouTube and all that. Most of the YouTube ones get 0 views, but it's like, hey, it's there. So obviously you could say it's being suppressed, 0 views, but it's there. If somebody stumbles on me, and they do, then all of a sudden they watch 10 YouTubes and they're like, oh, I want more of this guy. Then they follow me wherever it's most convenient for them.
Got it.
That's a way to do it. I would say it is not the best way to do it, but there's content out there on all those platforms, relatively current. If you go to me on Instagram, there's something in the last 7 days probably that I did. So that, I think that's better than nothing. It's better than not having an Instagram presence or waiting for perfection for me to do something only for Instagram.
Well, here's hoping some young people find us and tell all their friends.
One reader at a time, right?
Yeah.
So tell me about the book that's coming up and the one that you already wrote that's not coming out for another 10 years. You've scheduled that way out there.
So they're both in my Agent Victoria series, which is what I've kind of been focusing on. That's just where the ideas have come. And so Vanished on Vacation, there is a college student vacationing with her friends, and then she disappears. And she's in Mexico, but she happens to be the daughter of one of Victoria, who's an FBI agent, one of her friends, one of Victoria's colleagues. This is her niece. So Victoria goes down to Mexico to help the Mexican federales find her. And gets there, of course, she finds out that everybody's hiding secrets, the other guests, the girl's friends, the Mexican police suddenly aren't cooperating. So she takes matters into her own hands, and this allowed me to write some scenes that I really loved, where Victoria, like, just the whole world was sort of working against her, and she had to be so brave and so strong. Like, I love these scenes. Like, it's where she just really went above and beyond, and you feel like this is not your average chick. This woman is like made of tough stuff. So she obviously survives because she's in the next book, but I really enjoyed.
Funny how that works.
I had a lot of fun with it. And then in the next one, it's called The Atonement Murders, which is going to be interesting to market on TikTok, because I can't say murders. So I'll be like The Atonement Murders. And Victoria.
Well, you know some of the words they do use there, right?
Unalivers.
Yeah.
The Atonement Unalivers. Yeah, it'll be fun.
What's funny about that is it'll get more views if you have to say that. But I think you can still show the word, but you can't say it. I don't even know the rules on it. But some people will spell it with like a number 3 in there somehow or something. They use numbers and stuff.
Yeah.
So jumping through those hopes is like, hey, I'm playing ball with the TikTok community, but it also sticks out in somebody's head. It's like, what did she just say? You know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's gonna be fun. So I haven't really started talking about that one yet. So I feel like I should wait till this one is available before but that's the Atonement Murders is what I'm writing right now. So I feel kind of the most.
No. You said it's written
in it. Yeah. So, I mean, I'll spend 3 months polishing it. That's what I do. But, so I haven't really talked about it anywhere yet because I'm trying to focus on this one, but, yeah, it's fun.
So after Atonement, you're polishing Atonement. Does that mean you can't be working on a new story, or are you writing a new story while you're polishing Atonement? So the other one is done, right? The missing girl vanished on vacation.
Yeah,
that's done.
Months. And the Atonement Murders is done, but it needs a lot more work. So I'm working on that every day, full time. That's what it takes. That's what it takes.
You can't be working on a new story because you're working on that one.
No, so I'm not working on a new story yet, but I'm kind of letting the ideas, swish around so that by the time I'm done with it, and I'll have settled on my next book and my next idea, and I can get started right away. And one of the things that I've been doing is traveling and using, my travel adventures to write the next book. One, so that I can expense my whole vacation, which is fantastic. And 2, because when I'm there, I can get photographs of wherever I am and have those for like your marketing things. And so my husband and I went to Quebec a few months ago, and I would like to expense my part of the trip. And we stayed in this really old, famous hotel, and I took a lot of videos and stuff. And I think it's gonna be a great setting for a mystery thriller. So I'm trying to figure out how that hotel is in the next book.
Well, it's the same features. How did you get your protagonist to go to Mexico, right?
Yeah. So we go to resorts often, and so I think my last 2 resort visits, I expensed my whole side of the trip, because everything in those books, the resort ideas, I couldn't have written those books the way I did without those recent resort trips. They made it so much easier capturing the details, the sights, the smells, the vibes, and taking pictures too. So
there's no doubt that when you're actually at a place, because you're excited to be there, so you're noticing the things that are different about that place than your normal house or whatever, right? And so then those details become important. So you capture a lot of that excitement. It goes into the book because you were excited about it, and a little goes a long way. You don't have to, do too much, but it also shows that protagonist not being a little bit of a fish out of water if they're in Quebec or Mexico or wherever it would be. And a lot of that comes from when you have to talk to the people who are from that place, even if it's Quebec, because it's just a little different, even if it's just pulling out money to pay for something, it's a little different from what we do here.
Yeah. So that's what I've been doing. I've been, kind of coordinating.
So do you have an idea of what the next book is, or not yet?
Not quite yet. So I kind of have the setting.
She knows. She just doesn't want to tell us. She's like, I got
Yeah,
an idea, but I can't tell you.
yeah, it's not quite worked out yet.
Well, I
But
liked
I'll
one
be so
comment you made about the plane crash one, When They Find Us. You said
yeah.
something about this book's doing so well because I wrote the kind of, what did you say? I wrote the book I
Oh,
wrote.
you saw my TikTok. I said I wrote the kind of book that I to read. It's like
Yeah,
a
yeah. I was
survival
trying to
story.
get the way you said it, that you really put yourself into writing the kind of book you wanted to read, right? Is that the
Yes.
line you used? Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're excited about it. It was more pure of in more pure, more purely interesting to you, and
Yeah.
therefore more interesting, I think, right? Certainly, if somebody's interested in geology, may not translate over to a mystery story too much, but because you had talked about a survival story for a while before you wrote it,
Yeah.
and
And Vanished on Vacation. I wrote that entire Vanished on Vacation book because I wanted to write a scene where Victoria is struggling to survive. And I think I did a good job with it, according to like my beta readers and my critique group. But I wrote the whole book so that I could incorporate that scene where it's just against all odds and she has to be so mentally and physically tough. And that's why I write the whole book. And
so here's an
that's
interesting insight. Okay, this is why I like to do video. First of all, when you're conversing with somebody, if there's a pause and you can see they're thinking of a word, you can see that they're thinking of a word, and you can be patient. They didn't just like if you're on a phone call, you can't tell, right? So even though it's a podcast, I like the visual. But viewers of this who saw you talking, you got this little twinkle in your eye when you were like, I really wanted to have this scene. And there was just a different expression came over your face. And that's something that the audio doesn't pick it up all. You're just talking. But the look on your face is like you were so, into that moment, and it comes back to you and you can see it on your face, which is why it's so much fun to have audio or video rather as part of the podcast, because those are those little things that you wouldn't see, you wouldn't get in just an audio podcast.
yeah.
There's like a
I hope you
little intensity there.
I hope you can cut this into a bunch of things because we've been talking for so long and no one is going to want to listen this long. I hope you can
You'd
do
be
like
surprised. Well, it's definitely cut into two parts, okay? But as
that.
far as
True.
editing, now this will disappoint you, but as far as editing goes, see the type of podcasts I like to listen to, they just kind of evolve. And you could say, well, there's a slow part, they could edit it. You can tell the podcasts where they go through and edit and chop out stuff. But to me, it's like the roller coaster ride. The reason why the drop in the hill is so exciting is because everything isn't the big drop in the hill. And sometimes some of those side streets that may appear a little slower are hugely interesting because it's stuff that we find interesting. Just like that little twinkle in your eye when you were talking about the scene. I really wanted to show this in this scene with this character. There's an intensity you were bringing to it. To me, it's like sometimes those little side streets that would probably get edited out they end up being some viewers' favorite part because you opened up a little insight into something they wouldn't have gotten otherwise. And when I choose, now it's Dan's preference, what are the most interesting 10 segments? Or if I give it to you, it's like, what are your 10 most interesting 10 segments? And half of it ends up on the cutting room floor. But a lot of times with movies and stuff, the outtakes and those things are so interesting because it reveals part of the process. And so I don't want to pat myself on the back too much. It's purely out of laziness that I don't edit. But the podcasts that I like tend to not be edited. And sometimes they'll have a guest and it's just not clicking. It's not an interesting podcast. Or sometimes I talk too much and the guest is totally overshadowed, which hopefully is not the case here.
For sure, no one's going to listen for like more than an hour. Aren't podcasts like pretty short usually?
Do you know let's say one of the top 10 podcasts in the world routinely goes 3 hours with their guests. Just two guys sitting there, two people sitting down talking. And it's almost at that point where people feel like if we only get an hour on that particular podcast, he wasn't enjoying himself. The host wasn't enjoying himself very much. Yeah, I know. That's why I said you're going to tap out after an hour. So just for the readers, I was texting her. I said you'll probably want to tap out after an hour, but I'm sitting here like we can go as long as you want or as short as you want because it's up to you. Whatever's feeling right. And if
I
we're
knew
both sitting here looking for ideas, then it's probably time to end it.
We have so much to talk about though. We have gone through so many books together, box sets, the one where the guy stole everyone's money, the charity box set.
He who will not be named.
Anthologies. You know, we've done a lot of work together. We really
So
have.
one of the things that is always neat is how did people meet, right? So I mentioned I used to do a blog and I was having a writing contest on my blog, and I met Kelly Abel at a physical event, right? And we exchanged information. So she was following me on Facebook. So when I was talking about this writing contest, it would be, I didn't want to do a writing contest, but remember I said I was blogging mostly to other authors. So I was like, hey, we're on this boat together. Whatever I learn, I'll share with you, and vice versa, and we'll all move up faster. So it was that kind of approach. So after a while, people were like, you should have a writing contest. Like, what the hell do I want to have a writing contest for? First of all, let's suppose Stephen King and J.K. Rowling enter a contest. One gets a blue ribbon. That means the other one sucks. That's stupid. Writing doesn't work that way. So I didn't want to do it. And then I was like, okay, sure, fine, we'll do it. And we did it. And we had so many good entries. I was like, oh my God, there are so many of these people who have never been published, never whatever. They're good. So then I said, okay, let's have a writing contest. And as part of it, so I don't get 10 million entries that I've got to read, I put on some kind of a fee, $5 or $10, I don't remember. But in exchange for the fee, I was going to do a critique of up to whatever sample. Like you couldn't send me a whole book. It was, I don't know what I was critiquing, 3,000 words maybe, right?
It was a chapter.
So Kelly sees that on my Facebook. She shares it or whatever. You see it, and you wanted a critique of one of your stories. Was it the first CDC one? Or the second one?
Only wrong once. It was only wrong once. Yep. I remember this. I remember this story differently, but Kelly and I, Kelly and I used to have the same publisher. We both started with a small publisher.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we both, that's how I met Kelly, and I've never met her in person, but we had the same publisher, and she shared the Facebook post, and I saw that the first so many entries get a free critique.
Yeah,
and
because I couldn't do them all, you know.
I want feedback. I want all the feedback I can get before the book is out there. I don't really want you to tell me what I should have done after as much as I want you to tell me before. So I was so excited, and I sent it. And I will tell you, Dan, I sent you chapter 1. I remember it started with a scene in Aleppo, and there's a girl and her mom waiting.
I remember that. Waiting for the UN trucks or something, right?
Yeah. And they're waiting to get on a bus that's going to evacuate them. And the feedback you gave me is some of the best feedback I have ever had. I will never forget it. Like,
I thought you were going to say, I'll never forgive you.
No, that is your strength. It was so good. You just read my chapter, and you are so good at that. And I was so grateful. Like, you just took some things that I had told, and you made suggestions that just brought them to life, like so much better. Like, I remember this, you added this line about she was waiting for these trucks, these tanks to come, and she can't tell yet if it's the bad guys or the good guys. And I had told it in a few sentences, and you changed it to like, green is bad, gray is good, whatever it was. Like, it was so much better. So like right away, I was like, oh my God, I was so glad I sent that to you. I was so glad I found you. Like, it was just really, really good feedback. And I could tell it was so easy for you because you were doing it for like dozens of people. So yeah, that was good.
And usually pretty quick too, because when I would sit down to read it, I'm like, okay, this has to interest me, and I'm an impatient reader. If you're not grabbing me and bringing me into the boat, I'm off the line and I'm away, right? And I read this thing and I'm like, I get what you're going for here. But as I'm envisioning in my head, I'm like, they see the dust because they're in the desert or whatever.
You remember?
Oh yeah, I remember it very intensely. I'm thinking, to see the dust, they hear the motors, and the intensity, a big crowd of people, the little girl and the mom. And I'm like, the intensity is, we don't know if that's someone coming to kill us or save us, and how horrifying that would be. It's like, and then there's got to be, what are the logos of the truck? If it's the UN red, or if it's the whatever the other thing was green, it's like, and I thought, imagine sitting there with your kid in a crowd of your townspeople, and you see the dust and you hear the engines. It's like, is this going to be good or bad? Is it life or death about to appear? And then as soon as we see it, it's too late if it's something bad, right? And I just thought that was an intensity, that it was an opportunity that you kind of skipped by. And I think you had it in your head, but I didn't see it on the page. And I was like,
I can't believe you remember any of that.
oh,
You
yeah.
must have peeked and edited, I mean, thousands of things. So that's amazing that you can remember them. That's your genius brain, I
Because
guess.
we had a conversation about it. And you were like, you asked some questions. I'm like, well, the thing is, they don't know. You have the whole setup there, but and the people, oops, did I lose you again? Dang, I think I lost you again. She's gonna bail out on me now at this point. All right, let me text her real quick, see if we can get her back on board. Dang it. I lost you again, exclamation point. Um, try to log back in. Technical glitches. Well, lesson learned. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna stop the